So the life cycle will actually start from the the discovery phase, and from the discovery phase you would get into the analysis of the requirement, and then you would get into whether your feasibility analysis that you would make, whether the particular process, whether that particular process can be termed or can be achieved using RPA related process automation. So once that is done, you would get into creating your PDD document, and once PDD is getting created and approved by the customer, you will start with your actual design. So your solution starts to get created, and you would have a solution design document where all the technical information is going to be captured. So once the solution design document gets created, this is going to be the base document for the rest of the phases that would follow in the RPA lifecycle. And then the actual development starts. The developer will be starting with the actual development, and then once the integration and everything happens, that will happen in the optimized phase. When you're involved with sub modules, every module will be integrated together to achieve one single process automation. And once everything is completed and your unit testing and everything is done, we would go ahead and start with the user acceptance testing. So in the user acceptance testing, it is going to be in the monitor phase. And once you're going to monitor everything, you're going to go ahead and capture all the metrics, the reporting and everything you're going to capture. Did I achieve what I was supposed to achieve? So this is what you would see it in the measure state. And then finally you would get into your production deployment. And once your go live happens, you would have the pod controller or a post implementation support which will be happening. So this is where the RPA life cycle comes into existence, and based on the life cycle you will also so this will be the key parameter. This will be the key parameter for implementing any particular project using RPA. So the RPA lifecycle performs a very important role, and once you're going to have your successful RPA implementation to be implemented, then you're going to have these list of documents that will be available. So you're going to maintain these documents as a part of your RPA implementation. So what are the list of documents you will have? So one important document is your RPA opportunity assessment. So RPA opportunity assessment is nothing but it's going to say whether do we have the requirement in the requirement, do we have the opportunity to build this project, build this process as a RPA process. So this is what we do in the RPA opportunity assessment. Can this requirement be converted into can this process be converted into an RPA process? And then we go for a PDD creation, which is the process definition document or the project design document. And then once the customer approves your PDD, we actually create a solution design document. The solution design document is more of a technical document, which will be the base of what all the requirement information, all your decisions, the rules that you need to define for your robot, all those information will be available in your solution design document. And then once everything is done, you're going to have, these kind of documents are not a mandatory document. It could be part of your solution design document, or it could be maintained as an individual document. So what is a process design instruction? It is going to be how are you going to design your process. So we have this particular thing in line with the solution design document. And then you have the software and hardware requirements, which is going to be what is the software you're going to use. So for UiPath to be used, you need to have Windows platform to be available. So if it is going to be a Blue Prism tool, then again you need to have this particular version of Windows available. So those will be the software requirement that you need to have. And then the hardware requirement is going to be how many number of systems, how many number of the hardware related stuff that you're going to have. So in case your project requires testing using an interface, then you're going to have Apple interface or Android interface or whatever. So those kind of information will be part of your hardware requirements. And then you have a very important step, which is going to be as is flow and your to be flow. So as is going to be how your current process as a human intervented process is working. So as is going to be the current process, and to be is going to be how your actual solution is going to be once you develop the process automation. So that will be part of your as is and your to be solution documents. And then you have a summary report, which is going to be the most important document in your RPA implementation. The summary report is, for example, if you're going to have a data processing process automation, say suppose you receive 1,000 rows, and you're going to process that data, and you're going to send the output to something, and you're going to have a data manipulation there. So what actually happens, out of the 1,000 data, there might be 10 data which might error. There might be 10 data which might be, the data format itself might be different. So what happens is, whenever I do a process automation, I need to let the customer know, I need to let the user know, this was the number of data I received. I processed these many information. Out of this information, these went to success, these went to failure because of these reasons, and these went to failure because the data format was not right. So this is the important information that we capture in the summary report. A summary report is going to be part of every automation cycle that you have. Every time you start your robot process automation, a summary report will be generated at the end of your automation process. So summary report will detail as to what the bot did that particular day. Okay, so if you have processed the information, it will say all information successfully processed, and it will list all the information. If there is a failure, or if there is some unrelated issue happened, it would detail that particular step as well. So summary report will be the report where the user can see, okay, this information happened today, or this data was processed today. And then as usual, you have UAT test cases and tracker. Your test cases would be developed in case you're having a dedicated RPA tester. Then you would have, a quality tester. Then you would have a UAT test case document and your uh, tracker based on the defects that you have captured. And then finally, you will have a deployment guide which will say, okay, this is how you will take it, this particular process automation project, and deploy it into the production environment, or deploy into the this particular user system. And then you will have a user guide for to say, okay, if you need to start, I mean, it's a manual kind of, for a washing machine, when you buy, you have a manual, right? So similarly, you will have a manual for the process automation that you have done. Yeah, so this is going to be the PDD document that is available from the UiPath, that UiPath has given as a example. So this is a document which they have used for the order to cash. This is an example document. So what will the document be having? The document would have basically the information regarding like what is your project requirement, and what are you doing in the project as a part of the project development. So you would go ahead, if you see, the purpose of the document is there, what are you actually going to modify. So what is your project requirement will be available here, and who are the stakeholders involved. So if you have the business analyst, if you have the customer, all the related information will be available here. So once you do this particular thing, and what are the is there a dependency of your particular process automation with another process, those kind of any dependency factors comes here. And what is the as is and the to be flow. The as is works like this. So from this step to this step, this happens at, the list of steps that is involved. The as is information will be available here. So once your as is flow is defined, you would also see what will be the to be flow, which will be having, so this is your as is map. So this is your flowchart that you will have, as to say, this is your current way the process works with a manual intervention. So how would you have the to be processed? So you would say, okay, these are the information that I'm going to change, or this is where I could, alter the method, or alter that particular, way of doing the automation. So the, certain steps can be omitted, which might be unrequired for your particular process automation. So you would go ahead and define a process map, or this is going to be a to be solution. So once you're going to say your to be solution is this, then you would go ahead and say, okay, these are the information that I have it as in scope to this particular project, and what are the information that I will not touch as part of this particular project. So that will come in your out of scope, and what will be the decisions that I will need to involve. So if suppose, the data is coming out of the 1,000 data that comes, there is one data which is in a different format. So what should I do? Should I come and ask the business back, or to the user back, what should I do? Or should I continue with the processing even for that data? Those kind of information comes here. Or any other errors that might be encountered. Suppose you are working on an Internet Explorer and your Internet Explorer crashes. What should I do? These will be handled as an exception here. We will be looking at each topic slowly when we are getting inside. But these are the overall picture that you could see in the PDD document. Okay, and then finally you would say, what are the information that I'm going to have? So there would be a daily report that I would be sending, a monthly report that I would be selling. These will be the information that will happen on a daily basis. So all these kind of information that is pertaining to your project, any overall information that is pertaining to your project will be, I mean, any non-technical information that will be pertaining to your particular project will be part of your process design document. And the rest of the technical information will be part of your particular solution design document. Okay. And then coming back to your particular stuff, one sec, let me see if they have a project model. Okay, I don't have a project. Yeah. So this is a process model that I was talking about. So in the solution design phase, or in your automate phase, you would be having something called a project model, or a project object model, or a project process model. So what is this project process model? So anywhere your project requirement will be broken into larger pieces. Say, if you're, for example, if you're using the same timesheet application, what would happen? Your timesheet application would be in a thing like, you would be logging into your application. Once you log into your application, you're going to do the data input, which means you're going to enter your information related to your timesheet, the number of hours, the date, the how much time you were available, all those information you would be entering, right? So that will be termed as a data input field. And then you're going to have a validation. If the data is not right, if you have entered, instead of 10 you have entered a 0, then what happens? You have to go and recheck and re-enter that particular data. So you do that re-entry there, and then you go finally validate your information that you have submitted, and you go and submit. So what I'm doing, I could term it as 5 different boxes. Say login is my box, and then data input is my box, and then the last step is your validation, and then finally you would say submit and come out of your process, right? So this is what we would do as an overall flow chart. So what I would do is, as a simple flow chart that you would create, you would basically create a project model in a way that the customer can understand. You would not, if you have 10 steps, you need not put all the 10 steps here into the flow chart for your customer when you're giving it at the beginning phase. So what you would do is, you would say, okay, this is what I'm going to, this is how my information, my process will be like at the end of the day when I finish my development. So the start of the development, you would go and create this particular project model and say, okay, I'm going to do the data input. Once I do the data input, I would go and do the processing of the data. If the condition is true, I will say, okay, process finished. If the condition is going to false, or if the condition is not getting satisfied, I'll say, no, you reach to end process. So this is a kind of a flowchart that we give it based on the process requirement that we have. So this we do, this particular project model flowchart we do at the beginning of the project, to say, to give the picture, to give a general picture to the customer, saying this is how my end result will be, or my end process automation will be. Okay, so this is how we do. We are converting the English statements into a diagram, is what we do with the RPA automation. Okay, so this diagram will just be a base diagram. Not everything will be here when you're giving it, even before development, when you're creating this diagram, you would just have the key pieces in structure. Okay, but when you're actually finishing your project, this diagram will be a more detailed diagram, when your actual workflow will be there as a project. Okay, that we will slowly getting into when you're starting with the UiPath, right? So as I said, these are the list of documents that is involved. These are the list of people or the roles who will be involved. So you would have a project manager to execute your project. You would have an RPA business analyst who will be talking to the customer and analyzing the business requirement and telling it to the technical people. And then we have an RPA architect. The RPA architect might not be a person who might be involved in all projects, but he might be an experienced guy who has worked on different implementations in different RPA implementations. And then you have a most important person who will be the RPA developer. He could be a senior developer, or he could be a rather junior developer. So you have an RPA developer, and then you would have a QA tester. So who is involved where? So in the design and the solution phase, so basically in your discovery and in your automate phase, you will have the business analyst, and you would have the customer who would come and give you the project requirement. A PDD gets created, and then the technical people get the SDD created along with the RPA architect. And once your SDD gets created, you're going to actually go into your actual development. So you start building your bot, you start validating your bot, and then you're going to integrate your particular process automation, and then you're going to do the necessary documentation. And then we get into the testing and development phase, which was the monitor and optimize, monitor and measure phase. And now when you're going to do the UAT development and everything, you do a testing sign off, and once everything is done, you're going to move this into production environment. And then once it is moved to production environment, your automation solution or your process automation can be used by several other end users at the end of your process implementation. So this is what are the roles and responsibilities, and these are the RPA automation, the RPA life cycle. Okay. Now jumping on to the next one will be the list of tools that is available in the market. So what are the famous tools that's available? So basically the giants are the UiPath, Blue Prism and the Automation Anywhere. And we also have other tools like Pega, we have Work Fusion, we have Soft Motive, we have a couple of other tools available in the market. So most of, and the three major giants are going to be UiPath, Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere. So what is the difference over the other? So each tool is going to perform the same list of tasks that you would be doing for any, as an expectation of the any RPA tool. But what will be the additional feature will be, the advantage would be some of the tools will have additional features. So for example, UiPath will have certain additional features when compared to Blue Prism. Blue Prism could be more advantageous for high secured applications. UiPath will be more user friendly for the developers because the UI interface, the interface that you're going to develop, and it's going to be more user friendly for the developer to use, and this is going to be more highly reliable. And those kind of differences are going to be there, which is going to be the major factor for the companies to decide what is the tool they will be using on. Okay, so when compared to UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere, each of these tools have certain advantages and certain disadvantages. So if you see, UiPath is basically going to be on a different architecture. For example, if you see, the framework is going to be just a plain framework which will have just three components. You will develop, deploy, and you can execute. This is what the framework will be for UiPath. Whereas for Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere, you're going to have a client server architecture. So when I say client server architecture, you're going to have a client machine installation and the server that is going to be there where you'll be deploying your particular bots, and you're going to take, so it becomes a little more complex when it comes to the deployment. So similarly, so there are several advantages of one tool over another. So that's how the company decides on which tool to implement. And now there is more when I talk about UiPath, is the biggest advantage is that UiPath offers a more reliable tool for people who want to learn it as well. So whereas there is a lifetime community edition in a UiPath, so UiPath, the organization itself wants people to learn on the tool, and they have given you a lifetime community edition, which is going to be the software which is actually will be a replica of the original software. So you would have a free software available for you to learn, for you to deploy bots for yourself. You can do small scale development in that particular tool itself. So UiPath gives you a lifetime community edition. Whereas Blue Prism, I don't think there's any community edition available. Maybe if there's available, it will be a 30-day, or I think they've introduced a 30-day trial period for the Blue Prism tool. So basically, you have to get a licensed cost involving software only when you compare when you need to have a Blue Prism software. And then Automation Anywhere also gives you a 60-day trial period, and a 60-day trial period is very less when compared to the overall running. You might not be able to learn a particular tool within the matter of 60 days or something. You might tend to forget. So that is an advantage of UiPath. So similarly, you have several advantages of each tool. So every tool has certain features pertaining to itself. When compared to the other tools, UiPath is going to be more reliable and more secure, more reliable and more efficient enough, and it is also a user-friendly tool for the developer. So with UiPath, you can go with zero programming knowledge, and you can go ahead and do a process automation. Whereas in Blue Prism and Automation, and Blue Prism is going to be the next complex tool when compared to the programming language. So you might need to be requiring a little bit of programming skills. And Automation Anywhere, when compared to programming, Automation Anywhere is going to be the complex tool, because it's going to have OOPS concepts covered, it's going to have C# concepts covered, and all those things are going to be covered. And the user interface as well as is going to be a little difficult for a developer to go ahead and develop a bot or develop a process automation. Okay, and that's why there's more demand for the UiPath tool when compared to the Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere. So in real time, if you see, UiPath and Blue Prism is going to be almost on an equal scale, whereas Automation Anywhere would be a little lower. The usage of Automation Anywhere might be a little lower, and UiPath gets scores more and because of the tool usability, and because it's more user friendly to the developers. So this is what I said, RPA versus programming automation. Yeah. So what is actually UiPath tool? So UiPath tool is an RPA tool which is built on the Microsoft .NET platform. So this tool is actually will be helpful for you to do a process automation by creating software robots. So what you're going to do, you're going to have a software, you're going to have a process and you're going to automate that particular process by creating a new robot. And instead of you executing the process, the robot will be performing the same activities that you do. So these kind of steps can be achieved in UiPath. So what will be the applications that you can interact with UiPath? So UiPath has already got integrations with several SAP systems, ERP systems, Azure, if you're going to work on AWS, so if you're going to work on web-related information, if you're going to work on Windows-related information, if you're having Citrix-enabled information that you need to work, so all these integrations are already available. So it is easy for you to, irrespective of whatever is your process that you're getting, you should be able to integrate that particular process and do a process automation using UiPath. So these are the major advantages. So what are the components involved, or what is the framework or the architecture of UiPath? You have three information. So more than this, I would take you to the next screen. You can understand this better, and then we'll come back to the previous one. So you have three components involved. So what you, in UiPath basically is the easiest framework of when compared to the other tools. So UiPath offers the easiest way of using the tool and easiest way of deploying your bots. So what do we have? We have something called a studio. The studio is going to be where you're, as a developer, you would be actually creating your workflow. So your workflow is nothing but your flowchart that you would be creating, right? So you have English statements as your project requirement. You're going to convert that into a flowchart. So that is what you're going to do in the visual manner in the studio. So you would have a UiPath studio that will be available for the developer to use. And then you have a UiPath robot or a UiPath agent that is available. So UiPath gives you a default robot or a default agent which will execute your code. So whatever flowchart that you're developing or whatever workflow that you're designing will be executed by this robot. So this is something that is inbuilt in the application. So this particular robot will be only doing, running your particular, or it will be executing your particular workflow that you have designed. Then you have something called an orchestrator, which is the heart of the UiPath. So what does the orchestrator do, or what is an orchestrator? So orchestrator is nothing but it is a web application. So similar to what you do as a google.com. So you can go to any browser and you can go in and key in your corresponding orchestrator URL. So this is a kind of application where you're going to see, it is a kind of a dashboard where you will see, okay, so in real time, what you're going to do, you will not just have one process automation, right? So you would have number of process automations. So in a real time IT industry, if you take any project, you might have number of process automations available, which means there are number of projects running, right? So these kind of process automation, you need to know, okay, which bot is executing which process. So how many bots executed successfully today? What is the status of each bot? These kind of information, you could see it as a dashboard in the orchestrator. So orchestrator is nothing but it is a dashboard that will be used to deploy a bot, or to, when you want to deploy it in the end user's mission. So you can deploy the bot in the orchestrator. Then you can schedule, if you want to run it on a particular time, you want this particular process to run every day on a particular time, then you can go ahead and schedule this process. Then you can see how many processes went on a success, or did any process fail, or do I need to, reprocess something that has failed. So all these information you can do it on the orchestrator. We will see each component in detail once we get into the actual classes. So you have all the three components. A studio is going to have you enable the designing of your workflow, and the UiPath robot is going to actually perform the execution, and then the orchestrator is going to actually have the management, deployment, and monitoring of your processes that you have. Okay, so these are the three important components. Now, what is using these three important components? What is your framework? Okay, at the client, we are not going to have a similar framework. It is just for your reference. Okay, so at the client layer, so you would have, you would have a UiPath robot, and you would have the studio. So once you develop your particular code, you would have the robot to execute your particular workflow. And once it is executed, you would be able to deploy it in the UiPath orchestrator, so that other end users in real time will be able to use it. So that goes in the server layer. And in case you're going to interact with a database or anything, it comes in the persistency layer. So usually this is not the case. You would have studio and a robot installed in the developer machine. So that will be your client layer basically, or in your end users machine. And then you would have the orchestrator available as a single orchestrator. So UiPath offers a web-based, cloud-based orchestrator. So it would be installed on a particular machine, and anybody would be able to use the orchestrator. So that is what they mean by a server layer. So you have a server that is available which will host the orchestrator application, and using a URL you could, or instead of a server you could put it on a cloud, and from the cloud you can, or from the server you could access it via a URL. So this is a cloud based web orchestrator. Okay, and now once you have the orchestrator, you should be able to deploy or monitor or anything. All this part you will understand once you're getting into the actual UiPath development. Okay, so this is the architecture and these are the components involved. So as I said, this is the project model that you would be doing, and this is how you will be actually seeing your the workflow that you will be designing. This is how your workflow will be designed. And finally you have the certifications available. So this is your certification available, part of your current certification, where you have UiPath RPA associate and UiPath certified advanced RPA developer. So you have two certifications and the corresponding costs are available here. This will be part of the Pearson View certification.